Just a quick note on the Fisher 500B. I wasn't going to make a video on this, but decided that it might be helpful to somebody, so I'll go ahead and, and cover it. Regarding the knobs, the end caps of the knobs of these old Fishers tend to fall off, or they tend to corrode and get dinged up. Mine, half of them fell off and half of them were corroded. Now what you're looking at right here, these are new end caps. The knobs are all original, the end caps are new. And as I was in the process of popping the old caps off and putting the new ones on, I thought it might be maybe somewhat helpful to somebody to go ahead and explain how it's done, since I kind of learned by trial and error, so maybe I can help someone else avoid the error part of it. So now I've already taken off, I have 3 new caps on, 1, 2, and then the tuner knob over here, 3. And I've already removed the remainder of the knobs, and they're on my workbench. So I'm going to hit pause, go in there, and then show you the process of changing out the caps. Stand by. Alrighty, so here are the old knobs that I removed. And I popped the end caps off these 3 right here, and here's one with the end cap on it. And it's a bit corroded, not as bright and shiny as the new ones I put on. So I figured I'd go ahead and replace all of them. These are the new end caps right here. I got them from a gentleman on eBay who apparently makes them. And they are not exactly the same as the originals, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, but they're nice and shiny, and they're made out of brass, they're not plastic, so they're acceptable, but you have to do a little modification to make them fit properly. So first and foremost, getting the old end caps off if they haven't already fallen off. Now this one, let me see if I can set the camera down, and I'm not going to be able to show you. Let's see. Okay, so basically what you do is you need a long straight, I have a long straight little I don't know what you call this thing, an awl or a hole gouger or something, whatever it's called. And inside it's hollow all the way through, and you would just simply take this guy right here and poke real hard, and the cap will fall off. Now this one I already had off, I just put it back on for a demo, but you don't want to hold it like this and poke through, because you're going to end up poking your hand. So hold it kind of like that, so when the screwdriver goes through, it's not going to poke you. I just basically hold it on the bench like that and started poking like that, and it popped right off. Piece of cake. Now, as far as the new ones go, the differences are, I don't know if I'll see if I can show this on the camera. I'm not sure what's going to come through. The new ones are the same diameter, but they are not the same depth. Try to hold these so you can see. The old ones are much deeper. It's like a deeper pan shape. The new ones are kind of shallow. So when you go to install the new ones, and you put them on the cap, they tend to kind of sit, they don't cover the full piece of plastic in the middle. They kind of sit kind of too high. And so what I've done, if that makes any sense, what I've done is I've taken the old caps and I've sanded them down. There's a piece, this little piece, this little guy, piece of plastic in the middle, sits up higher than the knurled edges of the knob, and that's what's causing this new cap to sit out too far. It kind of is an ugly look with that thing sitting out too far. So because this the middle part of this knob sticks out further than the knurled edge, you can take it and lay it on a piece of sandpaper and put a piece of sandpaper down, and then basically just rub it around like that on the sandpaper. I used 100 grit just to get that center elevated part sanded down to almost just slightly above where the knurled edges are, and that provides an acceptable look when you go to glue the new end cap on. It fits nice and flush, and it looks, here we go, fits nice and flush, and it looks really nice. Now, as far as gluing them on, I'm going to show you how I do that next. Well, there's not much to show, really. Let me show you the products I use. Let me hit pause here for a second and grab my adhesive. I'll show you that. Stand by. Okay. All right, back. So what I like to use is JB Quick. You can use JB Weld also, but it takes a lot longer to dry. JB Quick is a two-part epoxy that dries nice and strong in about 5 minutes or less. It's just enough time to work with it, but not enough time where you have to wait forever for the stuff to dry. And I find that it makes a really good bond, but that the bond is not completely unbreakable. Like if I had to get these caps off again, I'm sure I could do it. It might destroy the cap itself because it's a very thin piece of brass, easily bent, but it wouldn't destroy the knob itself, and that's what I wouldn't want to have happen. So you mix these two together in equal parts, and these caps don't take any stress at all when you're rotating the knob. So you just need the tiniest bit to hold it on there. So, you know, if you ever wanted to remove them in the future and replace them with better ones, or if these corrode or get damaged, you'll be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and epoxy these end caps on each of the knobs. Oh, yeah, one more note. Let me say this. Some of the original caps have little lines. There we go. Little lines. There. Little lines, little marks that indicate the position of the knob. That's not really necessary. You can buy these with these lines on there. They're a little more expensive, not much more. But it's not necessary because all of the knobs on the Fisher 500B have a little detent thing, whatever you call it, little raised portion right there that fits up flush against the faceplate to tell you exactly where you are when you're turning a knob to select something or choose the volume or the balance. So it's not really necessary to have this little mark on the front of the knob, although they're certainly available if you want them. So I'm going to go ahead and epoxy these on, and then I'll show you the finished product. Alright, these little guys are done. They've been drying now for about a half hour, which is way more than enough. So I'm ready to put them back on the amp. Let's go do that and see how they look. Come on, buddy. Okay. I don't think I can do this with one hand, but I'll try. This little short guy here goes on the treble. Push it right in there, pops right in. And these other guys are all the same. Okay. Volume is on, balance. And the selector, which was currently on phono. Alright. So I'll back up and get a look. So now I've got a bunch of shiny new end caps. Go ahead and turn this thing on and let it warm up. So still a bit to be done. This amp is working great. I've got the new tubes in it, which they're large bottle tubes, much larger than the tubes that came with it. Same tube, the what is it, the 7591. These are Electro-Harmonix tubes, and they are a larger diameter bottle, but they do fit. I originally had purchased a match quad of the JJs, the Tesla tubes, and they sounded really bad, and I'd almost have to say horrible. I don't know why. They all tested perfectly good. They were good tubes, but particularly in the high frequencies, they just sounded really bad. So I sent them back and ordered a match quad of the Electro Harmonics, which is the only other manufacturer that I could find that makes this style, this model of tube, without spending buku bucks on new old stock, which I didn't want to do. So a match quad was about $70 for the Electro Harmonics, and they turns out they sound really, really good. They sound better than the tubes that came with it, which were a General Electric and Sylvania. So I'm really happy with them. And again, I purchased the driver tubes down here, which these are Svetlana 12AX7s, and I'm happy with those. The amplifier, when I bought it, did not have feet on it, and so right now I can't really see, but I'm resting on little thin pieces of wood. The amplifier really needs to breathe from below. It needs to get there. You see all these little vent holes on the top. The power transformer does heat up, and there are certain internal parts, resistors and such, that really need to breathe. So without the feet on the bottom, it doesn't allow air to flow through the bottom and up through the top, which is the normal convection process. So I have ordered 4 feet, amplifier rubber feet, and they're on the way. It's also important to have rubber feet on amps, especially tube amps, more so than solid state, as a source of vibration control or vibration isolation. With tubes, any vibration that would come up through the table or wherever you're resting your amp, if it makes its way to the chassis, it will come through the tubes by a small amount, but nonetheless you want to try to avoid that. So feet are on the way, and what I'm going to do next, well, not next will be the feet, but let me see if I can find a schematic. Schematic's got some, this thing landed in the trash and got some glue on it, but see if I can get a pen here and describe what I want to do next, which is an important upgrade if you want to if you want one of these amps and want to tinker with it. What we're seeing right here is one pair of the output tubes, and the way this is just if you're not a technical person, well, it's not any big deal. I'll just babble on for about 30 seconds, but this is a class AB1 configuration. It's just the way that these tubes are biased, and it is a fixed bias as opposed to what's called a cathode bias, if you want to look that up. And in a fixed bias circuit, the cathodes, which are right here and right there, they're linked together and they're both grounded. They're sitting at ground potential, and the grids right here is negative. We're relative to the cathode. In this case, negative 14.7 volts, but this can change depending on the operating point, where you want the tube to run. In this case, these tubes are heavily biased into Class A, which I appreciate, so I'm leaving that alone. But now, you can't. This is cut off here, but if you were to extend the plate leads over, you'd see the transformer, the output transformer right here, coming all the way down to the other plate. There's nothing in the signal path between the transformer, the plates, and then the cathodes to prevent, or nothing to absorb energy if these tubes happen to short out or arc. Tubes are prone to arcing. There's various things that can happen internally, but basically it's like a lightning strike, where you get like a little mini lightning strike. And this pen doesn't even work. Get a pencil here. An arc or lightning strike internal to the tube, from the plate to the cathode, or from the grid to the cathode, but mostly from the plate to the cathode because there's such a big voltage difference there. And if you get an arc, that's just like an internal short, and it'll send all kinds of current. I mean, massive amounts of current straight down to ground. And given that the only resistance in the signal path is the transformer, it's likely to damage or blow the transformer, and those things are expensive. They're $120 a pop if you want to get something equivalent to it new. So one of the things that other amp designers did later on in time, this amp is kind of old, is they right here they inserted a resistor, and you do the same on this side. And that resistor is typically, I've seen different values, but typically it would be at 10 ohms, and it would be something like a 5 watt or greater resistor, and you want a wire wound resistor. So 10 watt, excuse me, 10 ohms, 5 watt wire wound resistor inserted between the cathode and ground on both tubes, and you would repeat this for the other channel as well. And by having that in there, it does a couple of things. One is if there is an internal short or arcing in the tube, it provides a load to limit the current. And then it's also sort of a fuse also, where if the current is high enough, that resistor will short or will blow and be an open circuit, which, you know, that's a good thing as opposed to a short. Second thing it does is it provides a tap point where we can take a voltmeter or an oscilloscope across the resistor and look at what the current is doing. Now, this is a fixed bias amp. There's really nothing to adjust, but folks like me, we like to look. I just like to look and see what's going on and see what the signal looks like, and just to check to make sure that both tubes are behaving normally, in that the currents flowing through each of these 10 ohm resistors should be about the same. If they're not, then something is probably wrong with one of the tubes if the biases are check out, and they do on this amp. The biases are both almost exactly at negative 14.7 on the plates. And the other thing I want to do once I get these resistors in there is figure out how many watts I can put into an 8 ohm dummy load before this this stage changes over from Class A to Class B. I'm just curious how many good clean watts I get of Class A amplification before it kicks over into Class B. Just for my own curiosity. Not that I can do anything about it. I could tinker with the bias voltage, but I'm not going to do that. So that's what's coming up next. Sorry to be long-winded, but as I continue to work on this Fisher, I'll post other videos. Excuse me, allergies killing me. Now, one other thing real quick, and I mean real quick, I'm also going to figure out how to, I'll show you on the big schematic later, but I'm going to put an input of RCA phono type auxiliary input in the signal path, such as to bypass all of the, there's a low pass filter, a high pass filter, and a tone controls. And I want to bypass all that stuff and just get a nice clean signal directly to the input of the amplifier stages. And by bypassing all that stuff, presumably and hopefully get a nice clean, a cleaner signal by bypassing all kinds of passive components and even a couple of active components as well. So that's coming up in future videos. So thanks for watching again. Give me a thumbs up or send a comment my way. I'm happy to reply. Hopefully this somebody will find this helpful. And if I provided any bad information, which I think and I hope I didn't, feel free to correct me. I'm always happy to learn things. Thanks a million. Talk to you all soon. Bye bye.